What up, though? And welcome to the Base for the Culture podcast. I am your girl, Janine Wilson, and welcome to the show. And y'all, we're just gonna get right into it. We got David Dyson with us today. Like, David Dyson on bass, y'all. All right, so big round of applause. And thank you so much, David, for joining us and for being on Base for the Culture today. And y'all know us. You know we are always talking about David Dyson because if you are a bass player, you already know who he is. And if you don't, shame on you. But if you're not a bass player, you need to know who this man is. So we're going to get right into it. All right, so our main segment on our show is on bass. So how did you end up on bass?
Well, that's the fault of Larry Graham and Louis Johnson.
Understandably so.
Yeah. Listening to them, I was just drawn to it. Listening to Graham Central Station, and then Louis was the catalyst. When that first record came out, Look Out for Number One, I used to stare at the cover. I just had to have that record, and I used to stare at the cover, noticing the difference between the instruments. Because I didn't know the difference between a bass and a guitar until that album. Okay. And then I recognized the strings were thicker. At the time it was 4-string was the standard. Right. But I was just hypnotized by the bass. From that point on, I was listening to Bootsy and everybody that was playing bass. I was checking them out.
All right, so you basically was raised on the funk.
Oh, no doubt.
Okay.
No doubt.
But you were already musically inclined because this was like in your teenage years, right? You were already playing instruments?
No, that was my first. Well, yeah, you're right. I didn't think about I look at that. But I was playing euphonium, the baritone first, and I wanted to play sax, but by the time I was gonna join, my parents, tried to take me to different music stores. They were all out of rented saxophones, and they weren't gonna buy me one. Right. So it wasn't that deep. So the teacher was like, to meet with the music teacher, and on how we can solve it. And she was like, well, we have something here in the closet. It was like that. It was the euphonium, so a baritone. So that was my first instrument.
Wonderful.
And then I started playing with the orchestra, and then they had me play with the Prince George's County Orchestra, and I got my ratings on there, got superior ratings. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but then I wanted to switch. I used to get in trouble too in junior high school because when I started playing bass, because my music teacher, we had guitar class, and we were supposed to be playing the lessons of the guitar, when she teach us whatever, and then we go off on our own. And I'd be plucking on it, and she would say, Dyson, put the bass up. Put the guitar up, because, playing bass on it. And then, she had me write 100 times I would not play bass on the guitar. Oh, my goodness. It didn't stop me. I got in trouble several times. I would, I just try to be slicker with it.
Right.
But I was even on the, as soon as I get the guitar, I just wanted to pluck on it.
So you got bit by the bug.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and then what was your first bass?
It was a Checkmate bass. I know that was the brand. Checkmate. Yeah,
Whoa.
It was called Checkmate. And it was a beginner's bass. My parents got it. They gave me a little amp in the Mel Bay.
Yeah, the Mel
Bay. Practice book and all that stuff. With the practice with the music and stuff. So that was the first one. The second bass was a Cortez Fender copy.
Okay.
And I was 12 years old when they got me that.
Nice. And it's always good to have parents that believe in your vision and what you want to do. So that's amazing. All right, so we're just going to fast forward a little bit here. You were self-taught, right, on bass?
Yep.
Okay. So what did that journey, I always like to ask, what did that journey look like? Did it come naturally for you? Was it a learning curve? Like, what did that look like?
It's always at some point a learning curve, but yeah, it was something I wanted to do. I wanted to go down to the basement and work on stuff. And anytime I heard something, I was like, oh, I know I can learn that. Yeah. Let me check it out, And so, but it got to a point when I got, proficient at playing pretty much anything I heard on the radio. It wasn't until I did like a talent show and in junior high school, and one of my friends said, he said, yeah, you can play, but kind of look stupid when you play. And then I went in the mirror. I was like, yeah, I do look stupid, but there's nothing I can do about it.
I mean, it's bass face. Like what? Oh wow!
I saw him not too many years ago too.
He's still saying that.
He was working at He was like, it was right. Was it right before or right when the pandemic started? No, it was right before the pandemic. Because they're closed now. It was like Sports Authority or something like that. And I came in there looking for something for my son because he's a elite football player.
Okay.
And so this guy asked for some help, and he told me where. He said, "Follow me." And he said, then he stopped and he said, "You don't know who I am, do you?"
Oh wow.
And I was like, and then he just turned around and started walking. I said, and I had to think, I was like, I know exactly who he was from it. He used to be kind of like a bully back in the day. He had his crew and everything, and I remember we were pencil fighting in the back in the class. Pencil fighting was big, yeah. And I remember he tried to punk me because he had one of those from Zehrs. I don't know if you have those out here. There's a store called Zehrs. You could get they were like rubber pencils. They're pencils, but they were like rubber. You couldn't just snap them quick, easily. And he had one of those. I was like, oh, because I had the first hit, it should have snapped him. You be like, I should have snapped it. I was like, oh, you got a rubber pencil. He's like, nah, I'm gonna make it down. I said, nah, you ain't getting no head back. You got a rubber pencil. And he had it was kind of like a low-key gang. He had a crew there. I was like, he's like,
they had their pencil.
I'll see you afterwards if I don't get my hit. That kind of like. I was like, oh, we rolling like that,
Wow.
But so when I saw, it's funny. So when I saw him, I said, I remember you, Doug Dixon. What's up now?
Got your lick back, huh? I love it. I love it. All right, so you got through high school, went to Berkeley, right?
Uh-huh.
All the greats do. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then out the gate, you were with Walter Beasley, right?
Yep, that was my first gig. We did Jack the Rapper in Atlanta.
Wow.
Layla was on backgrounds.
Really?
Layla heavily, yep.
We were just talking about, yeah.
And she was also in one of the videos with me.
Nice. Nice. And I mean, we're here with him today because he's here with Walter Beasley. So to this day, you're still playing with him.
That's my big bro right there.
That's amazing. So you've pretty much been with some of the heavy hitters. Y'all probably know from like Pieces of Dream, like all that good stuff. But your music, and I know you're from the DMV.
Yes, ma'am.
I am a go-go head. I'm from Detroit, born and raised, but I am a go-go head. You would think I was from the DMV. And Southern Fried Go-Go. That was like one of my favorites on your album. And anytime like I think of like a go-go bass player, I think of you.
Oh, is that right?
And we actually put together like on one of our segments, we put together like a band to redo a Zap song. And I did a go-go version, and of course I had to have David Dyson on bass. So like your musical landscape.
Yeah.
So I just want to know personally, this is a selfish question. Like, can we expect more go-go from you? Like, I need like a David Dyson go-go album, like straight go-go. I know you play with the great Chuck Brown, So we already know how it is. Like, I need a go-go album from you, for real. And that was like a selfish question, for real.
I put it all on. I don't know. A lot of people been asking me when I'm going to do another one. I'm just content to write for other people right now.
Okay.
Because the industry just seems so, I don't know. I don't know what I just rather write for other people and let them deal with all the ins and outs of this crazy industry right now. But
that makes sense.
No, but actually, if you check out, there's a project now called Crank Caviar.
Yeah. Yes.
And then it's really we're still doing more stuff. I can't make all of the things. It's like a collective of all the DMV artists, go, legends and everybody else involved in and then they're doing like cover songs. And the whole purpose is to get go out to the world, So, I just turned down one the other day because I said, the schedule's getting crazy, but I enjoy doing them though.
Okay.
But I asked the producer, is he gonna do I mean, is you gonna make it an album? He's still in that process because he's doing a bunch of videos. But I'm like,
Okay.
you need to just go ahead and make it an album.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. I actually produced something. It was for Go for a Walk, but I don't know if it's gonna make the record for other reasons. So we'll see. And it has some Go Legends on that.
Nice.
So we'll see, but I'll keep that in consideration. I'll take that in consideration.
Because you got some people waiting on that, like for real. Yes, yes. And so we gotta talk about your tone and your style of playing for a minute, because like absolutely we put you in the classes of like the Marcus Millers, like you know how you have a signature tone. Like we hear like a couple of notes and it's like, oh, David Dyson. Like how did you develop that? Is it all in your bass or is it in your fingers?
It's both, but mainly in my hands. That's funny you say that. And when I started working on that, it was from Metro Talent Search, DC Talent Search, and I did 2 of them. Now the first one, it's funny you say that. I'm gonna tie them all in. The first one, I lost to a go-go drummer, because I came in there thinking I was doing something deep. I had it was like a medley of all my favorite Stanley Clarke, Lewis, and and Jocko, and I had all this medley of that I had, and I had an arrangement, and it was just all bass.
Okay.
And I thought, oh yeah, that'll get them. You're a teenager, you don't know. They just want to hear groove. They don't care about that. So they were like, yeah, that's cool. And then the drummer, it was just a go-go drummer. No music, no nothing. Just came up there and I was like, shop, go, yes! And everybody was like, oh! I was like,
go beat, yeah.
That's what I said. Now I love go too, but come on, man. So now the second talent search, I was Stanley Clarked out though. And I even had one of my classmates had given me a custom shirt that said Stanley Clarke on it. I wanted to be Stanley Clarke.
Wow.
And so I'm backstage waiting to hear the results. And this guy came backstage. I can't even remember where I fell in that one, but the guy came backstage. He said, "You the bass player?" What? He's like, "Yeah." He said, "You sounded good, but you need to find your own voice. You need to have your own sound. You sound just like Stanley Clarke." And I was that hurt my feelings, but it's the best. I wish I could beat him now. That's the best thing he could have told me. So I was like, all right, I know all these bass players that I check out. There's all of them in me, because I've been inspired by them all. But I need to find my own thing, And funny, and it was a slow and long process because one of my roommates, who's a great drummer, played with Herbie Hancock, Dave Holland, all the greats. He, Kevin Eubanks.
Okay.
He, every night we come home. We were roommates at Berkeley. And come home, we play chess, and then he's like, "Hey, let me have your bass." And he couldn't play a note, but just sonically, rhythmically, what he would do, I said, "Wait, it was funky." I said, "Wait a minute, do that again?" Because he'd be like, he didn't know what he was playing, what notes, and he'd just be like, and I said, "Wait a minute, do that again? That's funky, man." So I kind of credit him to getting some of that vibe, because that's kind of like, that's how I want to play bass, you know what I mean? And then when I started teaching, I learned, I loved seeing Marcus do, muting, how he mute and you could use it. So I started muting. You could use it for a breakdown, a groove. You could use it for interlude. It changes the whole vibe when you switch to that technique. So, and then I started trying to do more with it and was wearing my thumb muscle out. So I was like, I had a gig where, I started incorporating just these 2 fingers. And I had a gig where it was just me, a keyboardist, and a guitar player, no drummer. And so it was cool all the way through. It was like a jazz gig. We did jazz and Latin. And so I was kind of applying it through that, playing the whole gig like that. And then he said, "Take a solo." I'm like, I never took no solo with this technique, and I did it, and it came out nice. I was like, oh, wow. So I was like, wow. So I realized I could do more with it. And so I had a student, great bass player. He played with Screaming Headless Torsos, and
wow.
He was always on the cutting edge of all the techniques of all the bass players. He had a lot of techniques and a lot of chops. And he said, when he'd see me do that, he said, "Wait, what are you doing there?" He was always like intrigued. He wanted to learn it. And And that's when I said, I got something here. Let me start really developing this. And it's more, and it's out of muting, but I'm picking at the same time. So that's why I call it mutepicking. So, and I use all my fingers, So, and then I started realizing I could use it for anything. I use it for reggae, funk, gospel, straight ahead. I can use it. I mean, I did it on one. Um, I guess when I did it with a reggae, I ask, like when I'm playing with a straight up reggae band or a straight up Latin band or whatever, so, straight ahead cats, they, I'll ask, I don't know it all. I'm like, so does it sound legit? For your style, you know what I mean? And the only, and they'll usually give me some tips, like for the reggae stuff, a lot of times they wanted to ring a little bit longer, or whatever, or something, it's all a matter of taste. And I did a record with Phil Upchurch, and we did some straight ahead, and he was like, nah, I want you to bring the notes a little longer, so, I just have to adjust the technique to that, but otherwise, it works, it's been, and when your fingers get tired of doing all this, it's, you can switch in the technique, gives you a break, really. You got all the fingers, involved, so yeah, I love it.
And that's like what we watch our videos, like, it's like, but that's what you're known for, and that's what, like, we love about you, your style of mute picking and your technique. And it's, I can't wait for the solo. Like, come on, let's get to the solo because we know he's about to knock it out the park. And it's just amazing. Like, so you teach that technique? Because, like,
I actually have a, what, I'll send that to y'all too. I have I did a, what is it, like an app. I did, what is it called? Groove Bass with Dave Dyson.
Okay.
Dave Dyson Groove Bass Concepts. I had it out for iPhone, for, Apple people and for Android. And it did well on the Apple side for a while.
Okay.
But then you got to keep updating, and you got to hit. And then my guy that was doing, one of the person on the Android side wasn't so good, and then the Apple guy vanished. So I was like, oh man, he was great, man. And I just focused on other stuff.
Gotcha.
But I have the stuff. I'll send y'all the files.
Yeah, because I'll be like, bro, how? It is amazing. And random bass question. If you could only have one string on your bass, they took away all your other 4 strings, which string are you choosing?
Wow. Nobody. Probably the E string.
E string.
E string, yeah.
We got an E string, y'all.
E string, yeah.
Okay. And if you could only play in one key, David, you can't play in no other key. There's one key for the rest of your life. What key you choosing?
It really doesn't matter because I purposely, like when I was in college at Berkeley, that was something that he was stressed, be able to play everything in every key, Charlie Parker on there. So I was like, all right, just cause it's an open E. Now there's certain keys like, E or A, where you can use the open strings, and so you benefit from it, but I don't let that hinder me. It's like, all right, it doesn't matter. It can be E flat, I'll figure out a way to make it, there's different nuances, but so as a bass player, if you want to say that, of course, E. That's automatic.
Do you standard tone?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have buddies that church boys, and they and I grew up in church too, but I never tuned my jump down. Especially for reading, man. I'm like, no, that would confuse me.
Yeah.
I'm like, but a lot of, I guess, some cats don't read, so it doesn't matter. So.
Especially.
But I love the tone. I love the way like cats like my. Like Mark Walker, that's a good buddy of mine, did all the Richard Smallwood stuff. Yeah. His tone is killing, and he's got the chords and everything. I'm like, man, I don't know how you. And his memory, man. Anybody will tell you down there, he remembers. I need charts. I need the external hard drive for something because I'm doing a lot of different people's music. I'm not gonna remember all the arrangements and everything. Yeah. So I say, I'm getting older. That's an external hard drive. But him, man, he remembers all that stuff.
Gospel real quick. So I know that when you started, were you playing in church?
Yeah.
Okay.
Originally? No. Not when I started off. I didn't. So I really started at 12. I didn't start playing in church until 11th grade.
Okay. So. All right. Have you had any gospel recordings, like with any gospel artists? Because we've been searching, and you know how they don't really be having credits like that.
Right.
So
you're right.
I couldn't find anything.
Well, you know what? When I was younger, from age like 14 to I guess 14 to 15, There was in Clinton, Maryland. There was a studio. I don't even remember the studio. And every Saturday I would go there, and they pay me. I don't know how much it was a lot to me being a kid.
Right.
And I would record with a different artist. It was all gospel.
Oh wow.
I don't remember none of that stuff. The only artist I remember was Hazel Hancock, whoever that was. And they would come in from out of town.
Okay.
And so they would play down the stuff on the piano once or twice, and then I'd have to, then it was time to take it. So, I got a lot of good going on as far as just memory and stuff. But so I wouldn't know any of the early recordings, a lot of the stuff that I did, because it was every week.
Gotcha.
Every weekend I was going up there and recording. I just kind of didn't exhaust myself trying to. But let's see. As far as any name artists, I don't. Let me think. I would look at my. I played with the artists, but
okay.
Let me see what. See, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that.
No, we were just curious because we're gospel all day, so it's like our favorite gospel, our favorite bass players. We just like trying to find anything gospel that they played on. So I'm like, can't really find that for David.
I played on. Have you heard of? I don't know what her new group is. Frida Battle.
Yes.
Yeah, she was killing. I played with her band up in Boston when I was in college.
Okay.
And we recorded a record, and I never heard that. I don't know where it is either. That's another that goes in the can with another. But I used to love playing with her. She was killing. And now it's Frida Battle and something else. But that's because when I was at my church, they had us learn one of the songs. Say, "Oh, Frida Battle, I'm playing with her. I'm recording with her. She's still doing stuff. All right, cool." So
That's cool.
But most of the artists that I play with. See, I'm gonna have to go back. I'm trying to think of who. I know there's some. I know there's some. I just can't think of it, but I'll let you know.
Nice.
I used to keep track of all that stuff. Now I was like, all right.
Yeah. You've done so much, so I'm sure it's hard to keep up with it. And I know, what advice would you give to somebody that is just starting on bass? Because we have musicians of all skill levels that listen to the show. Mm-hmm. And what advice would you give to somebody just starting out, as a teacher? What's your advice that you give to your student?
Listen. Just listen a lot. I mean, actually, I look at listening to what you listen to, and not to today's stuff. Listen to the older stuff. The stuff that's the old school stuff where it was a lot of musicality, a lot of interesting changes and melodies, in all genres too. I mean, it's a lot of genres. I mean, you don't have to limit yourself. I was just telling somebody yesterday that I was limited in my listening for a while. It was all funk to a certain point. Then I didn't get I didn't start listening to Jimi Hendrix until around high school. About to go to 12th grade, and I had a friend that played guitar that wanted to jam, and then he introduced me to Jimi Hendrix. I was like, oh shoot, so this is a whole new thing. And then that's when the fusion came in too. And the fusion, I was a Stanley Clarke fanatic. Well, what happened there is I switched albums with a drummer of a group that we had, and he got some records. I don't know if he got it from his uncle or what. And he wanted the second part of my Gratitude, Earth, Wind, and Fire record. He wanted the live part. I was like, shoot, I want my album. And he said. And he had, he wanted to trade for 2 records. And I remember the very 2 records. One was Stanley Clarke's first record, the brown one.
Yeah.
Stanley with Lopsy Lou on it.
Yeah.
And the second one was Earl Clue, but it had Beretta on there and Dance With Me.
Okay.
And Louis Johnson was on one of the cuts. So I was like, oh my God, you got me there. You can have this one. So it was and Louis Johnson, anything with Louis Johnson on it, I wanted.
Yeah.
And so he got me there, and then the Stanley record, I was like, I'm not hip. Let me check. But I saw he was a bass player and he looked cool. And when I put that record on, it changed my life. Changed my life. I was like, oh my God, that's a bass? That's a bass, really? So those 2 records, that record, the Stanley Clarke record, changed my life, and so did the Louis Johnson, Brothers Johnson's first one, Looking Out for Number One. What was your question?
Just the advice that you would give. You said listen.
Yeah,
that's the best advice.
Listening, and then eventually when you start learning, eventually that connection comes with what you're listening to. Because at a certain point, I knew I could hear something and know if I could play it or not.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I can play that.
Yeah.
You know, because growing up, everybody was always the hottest thing on the radio. Everybody was like, "Dad, can you? Oh, you're a bass player? Can you play such and such? That's on the radio now." Right. Yeah, I can play that, man. You know, and so that would happen all the time.
Yeah.
You know, so but you know you can play it. You know, when you start making that connection. But that's it. Basically, listen and then keep practicing. Keep, you know. But that is if the passion's there. If that passion's there, you're gonna do it anyway. You're gonna keep at it. Because I would just go in my parents' basement and I was there for hours, just as I was as passionate playing as I was listening. Because I would, you know, before I even played, I felt like a bass player.
Yeah.
You know, I had the baseball bat in front of the you know, the vacuum cleaner curls at the top. That was my mic. I was Bootsy Jack.
I love it.
And I had a belt going around the baseball bat.
Oh man, not the belt on the baseball
bat.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is, when they finally got me a bass, it did not feel right. I was so used to that baseball bat, it didn't even feel right. I had to get used to the instrument. But basically listening and just practice. I mean, but that listening is like I say that's like 90% of learning and then practicing is listening because there's things at different points in time when you're playing. There's things that you're gonna play a line or a lick and I'm like, dang, where that? I know I heard that before. Where that come? It'll be something that you learned way back, something that you heard way back, and then you were inspired by that. You know, so that happens all the time. Still happens to me now. Stuff that I've listened to, you know, and I'm like, where did I hear that before? You know, a lick I played or whatever. But it's feeding you all this. When you listen a lot, it's feeding you all this creativity, all these tools to use, all these all these pieces of the puzzle to put in there. Oh, that works right there. Or wait a minute, I remember, and sometimes, like I said, you don't even know where you got it from at first. It just comes to you, like, because it just feels right at that point. So listening is real serious when it comes to learning and playing. And then technique-wise, it depends on what you want to learn. Like, just practicing things to strengthen where what kind of player you want to be. Of course, it's best to be well-rounded. You're going to work more. The more that also helps listening, because the more genres you listen to and the more that you listen to, you'll because you've been listening to them, you won't just play cliche things. You'll play it more authentically, and that's real important to me. I mean, I've been on gigs before, even playing with the artists from overseas and stuff. And when I listen to the original recording, I'm like, okay, see, the bass player is a good bass player, but he did not do his homework on that culture, And because that was always my fear. I didn't want to go overseas and not sound like a South African bass player. I wanted them to know I did my homework. I wanted to be able to do. And I remember being in the studio with Jonathan Butler, and he was like, "No, that's great." I said, "No, I got to do it over. I got it. Ain't right yet. It's not right yet. I want to do that over." And I wanted this to sound more like a South African bass player, but with my touch on it.
Nice.
So it was a song called Mandela Bay on the Jonathan Butler record. And I played like 5, 6 cuts on that record, but that I remember that tune. It just he was like, "No, that's great." I'm like, "No, it ain't right yet. It ain't right yet. I got to do it over."
So you really wanted it to be authentic.
Yeah,
and that's amazing. Like, you don't hear that, too often. People just want to do them, but to take the time to do that, that's really, really amazing. And I know you play different genres, but the kid in me, I really have to ask you this. Right. Okay, I'm an 80s baby, and you was on tour with New Kids.
Yep.
That was like, they were everything to me, like growing up. Like, and
everything to a lot of people.
I'm sure.
Sisters,
yes.
cousins.
Oh my goodness, and like to go, that was like one of your first big gigs too, like.
Yeah, that was the first big gig.
And you were MD on that, right?
Yep. I wasn't originally MD. It was an MD. The MD, the one that called me on the gig, was the MD, and he was a teacher at Berkeley, actually, keyboardist. And I remember that day in Boston. It was a cold, slushy day. I did not want to go out. He called me like, "Hey man, come on down to Roxbury. Got an audition for you. Well, I had never heard of New Kids on the Block or nothing like that, so I didn't know what, and because I didn't listen to pop radio and stuff like that. So, and I was like, man, I was kind of hemming and hawing. I didn't want. He said, man, I'll pay for the cab. Just come on down. So I came down and went in the studio, and it was like, a bunch of people hanging out in the studio. Met Marie Starr and and so I pulled out my bass and I was like, I didn't know what to play. He's like, well, just play such and such. Play Please Don't Go Girl. And I was like, I turned to one of the people that was hanging out and I was like, what the heck is Please Don't Go Girl? And he was like, that's the hit that's out right now. I was like, oh. So in my mind, I was like, I blew it. And he's like, no, it's all good. It's all cool. Just, run down some old school stuff. Yeah. Run down some OJs or some stylistics.
Okay.
Because he's a big old R&B head. Yeah. I was like, oh, I can do that. so I did. And he was impressed. And it didn't take long. He was like, all right, cool. And he gave me a ride back to my place himself. And he started talking all this, saying, man, they're going to be the biggest thing since the Beatles. And this and that. He played me a cassette tape. I put $100,000 of my own money into them. They're going to be this and that. So I got a lot of respect for him because I seen him take him from that to, So, a lot of people could say bad things about him, but he's determined and he did what he said he was going to do,
Yeah. So. Yeah, so like, as far as that being like your first big gig, big tour, like did that make you want to be like, okay, I want to keep doing this aspect of being like a touring musician for other artists, or was it like, okay, I just wanted to like get in the studio, like?
No, I still want to do both, but I did want to finally come off the road for a while. I mean, I like going out like I am now. I mean, the transition. Well, the transition was when I got married and had kids, and then it was like, my wife was like, well, you can't be gone for 6 months at a time now.
Right, that changes
and I was
the game.
like, dang. So I was like, okay, how is this? This is either gonna be a big argument or, what I mean, because you knew what you were getting into. But I said, but no, it's important to me too. It's important to me and my kids and stuff. So, actually, the transition was pretty smooth because I started doing a lot of R&B and jazz gigs and stuff, and it I wasn't making as much money as the New Kids, with the New Kids, but I was sustaining and I was going out for like maybe a weekend and coming back. I mean, I wasn't gone long, so that was great. There were a couple of tours where at the longest I'd be gone maybe 9 or 12 days or something like that. Short
that's not
tours.
Bad. Yeah.
So so the transition's been cool. I did get an offer to do something a little while after I made the transition, and I had to turn it down, and I will not turn back and regret it because they told me how long it was going to be. It would have been like 8 months. So.
Oh, wow.
And so I looked at my wife and said,
that's right. Like,
yeah. So that was it,
Yeah.
But everything for a reason. So when I mean, shoot, I got asked. I remember I met Rick James and Tina Marie after the gig in L.A. With Michelle and Degacello. So we can't stay. And I'm always trying to get back to my get back to my room as soon as I can have the gig. And so I was hanging with the guitar player. That was my boy, Alan Cato.
Okay.
And so I was waiting on him, and up comes the SUV in the parking lot, and it's Rick James and Tina Marie in the passenger seat. And he's like, hey, I like what you're doing, man. I got a tour coming up. It was his last tour. That was the last tour. He's like, I got another tour coming up. He got my information and stuff. And then just like on the corporate gigs, on corporate gigs, your resume is and your references of the past. Well, in the music business, it's the same way because all you gotta do is ask the past people, So I didn't do that to him.
Okay, I got you. Look, understood. All right, last question. U3D.
Yeah.
Listen, amazing project. Okay, so here's the thing. Like, it's only on iTunes. Is that the only way to get it?
I don't even know. And you know what? I'll just talk to the keyboardist because he wants to put it back out.
Amazing project. So, amazing. Yeah,
thank you.
Yes.
So, because we still don't know what we're going to do. It's an internal thing, but we don't know where we're going to, we might have to change, I don't know, a member or so, or what, I don't know, it's an internal thing. Gotcha. I just put it that way. I don't know what's going on. So, I don't know if it's going to happen or not. If we're going to move on like we were or move on differently, if at all. So that's what we're kind of going through. But it was, I love the group, and the fellas. So we'll see what happens, But we talk about, me and the keyboardist, we talk about it all the time. So
it was like, it's definitely a vibe, like an amazing project. So it's like, yes, we need more of that. So
all right, I'll try to see if I can put something in motion.
Yeah, but man, we would be all here all day if we talked about everything that David Dyson has done. He is so necessary in the world of bass, and we are just so grateful that you came on with us today, that you took the time, and we give you a big Bass for the Culture salute to Mr. David Dyson on bass. Now I'm about to go listen to him play, but yeah, if y'all can get here, come on down to Shane Park. Well, the Aretha, y'all know. All right, y'all, peace.